welcome to the Rime Buddhist Center's Dharma Talk podcast, Achieving Peace Through Compassion. This podcast is a recording of the Dharma Talks given during our Sunday service.
Today is December 7th. Tomorrow is December 8th. And a lot of Buddhist traditions around the world, they celebrate Bodhi Day on December 8th. That is the day that marks the Buddha's awakening. The day that he decided to sit under a tree and get enlightened or die trying. That was his intention when he sat under a tree. And this tree, the Bodhi tree, it's a real tree. It's called Ficus religiosa, real creative naming on that. And you can actually go to Bodh Gaya, where the Buddha sat, and that tree's not there anymore, but its descendants are, because trees, they don't move. So you can actually go there and you can actually see trees descended from that tree. So that's kind of cool. That's something I'd like to do. And Bodh Gaya is kind of near the border of India and Nepal. And it's a place I'd like to go one day. So the Buddha, the figure we call the Buddha, he sat under this tree for a long time. And he realized the nature of suffering, the connectedness of things, and the path to freedom. Great, right? And to celebrate Bodhi Day, we don't need to necessarily do something big. Some people on this December holiday, they like to bring a tree into their house and put colorful lights around and stuff. Can you imagine doing that on a holiday? I don't know. But we can do that, but we can also take this as an opportunity to remember the central point of the Buddha's enlightenment, the direct experience of truth. And I'm going to share a little bit about the Buddha's life. I like to talk about the Buddha's life up here sometimes because I think there's always something we can learn from the Buddha's life, always. So the Buddha is a title. It means the awakened one. That was not his name. His name was Siddhartha, and his father was a powerful person. Sometimes we say a king. I'm not sure if he was a king or just a really wealthy, powerful person who had everything. But his father, the king, he went to a fortune teller before his son was born because having an heir was very important to him. So he went to a fortune teller and he asked, what's going to happen with my son? My wife is pregnant. What's going to happen with my son? And the fortune teller told him, your son is either going to be a great and powerful ruler or a very wise spiritual teacher. The king, he thought what many rich parents think when their kids say, I'm going to art school. He thought, I don't want my son to be poor. So for the record, if my son says he's going to art school, I'm going to be happy. But he thought, I don't want my son to be poor. If he's a spiritual teacher, he's going to be poor. So the king, he conspired to try to make sure his son would not have questions about spiritual things. So he thought he would give him the most comfortable and happy life he possibly could. Because he thought, if I give him everything, he's not going to think about spirituality. That was his line of thinking. So Siddhartha, he grew up with all the best toys, whatever toys were back then. We're talking 2,500 years ago, so he didn't have an Xbox or anything. But whatever the best stuff of the time he had, and he had all his favorite foods all the time. The king was not worried about what we worry about now, spoiling his child. That was not a thing. He was not worried about that at all. So he just provided him everything. And unfortunately, soon after Siddhartha was born, his mother did pass away. So I do think that loss colored his life some. He was raised by a stepmother and his dad, but he did have all the best things, but he did have loss from early childhood because his mother, she passed away shortly after his birth. Probably complications from that birth. And so he did have that experience coloring his life. But we are told that the king made him so sheltered that Siddhartha did not know about impermanence, sickness, and death. So I imagine, it's hard to imagine that he didn't notice his dad's beard turning gray at the very least, right? So he had to know something of impermanence. But I imagine any pets that he had, it was the old, your dog went to live on a farm, right? He's fine. He went to live on a farm. I imagine it was that. And sickness, it's hard to believe the Buddha never had a cold, right? So more on that in a bit. But we are told he was sheltered completely from all these things. So he grew up in a way that none of us would ever grow up, right? He was sheltered from everything. And the way the story goes, one day, he started to really be curious about the world. And he's in his 20s. And he's even gotten married by this time. Siddhartha has. By the way, everybody's super nice to him. So he got like the wife he wanted and he got all the friends he wanted. Again, he had everything because his dad was so powerful. But he started to think something was missing from life. He started to think, like, I have everything. I should feel happier. I should feel happier. I have everything. And so he asked a servant to take him out of the palace and into a village nearby. And like he had been out of the palace before, but anytime he went anywhere, that was curated, right? So anything that could upset him was hidden from him. So he sneaks out with this one servant and he goes and sees a nearby village. And he sees what is called the four sights. The four sights. So it said that for the first time in his life, he saw a sick person, an old person, a dead body, and then spiritual people, ascetics. We can think of them as like monks. So it said that he did not see these things ever before, and he had this shock to his system this day. And I like to think, though, and he had to have this servant explain all these things to him because he had no frame of reference for this. I like to think, though, I like to say it's really the fifth sights, because I like to think that what he really saw for the first time was poor people. So when he saw a sick person, what he saw was a sick person without medical care. Okay? And when he saw an old person, he saw an old person without any of the comforts that make old age a little bit easier, right? He saw an old person with nothing. And then when he saw a dead body, I think he saw a dead body in the street, right? And if you've seen a dead body at a funeral and you've seen a dead body in real life, you know that's not the same. So it might have even been like gross and rotting, right? Because in those days, sometimes that would happen. Bodies would just be out there for a while. So he saw these things, and then he saw these people practicing spirituality, and he asked the servant he was with, he asked him, what are they doing? And he said, they're seeking spiritual truths. They have walked away from the world and they're seeking spiritual truths. And so Siddhartha decides, well, why not me then? So he decides this has shocked him so much that he's going to walk away from his life in the palace, and he's going to go out, hang out with these guys, and try to find spiritual truth himself. So that is what he does. He exchanges his royal clothes for like what a poor person would wear, and he cuts his hair. In those days, long hair was considered a sign of privilege, long hair, because you got to like take care of it and stuff. So he cut his hair and he put on kind of raggedy clothes, and he just goes out. He abandons his life. And so we are told he practiced with various spiritual teachers that he could find. And even with them, he learned how to do some yoga and some different meditation practices. And even with them, over a period of 6 years, he did this. Even in those situations, he didn't find the contentment that he thought he was going to find. He didn't find what he was looking for. What he found was he could get temporary relief from these different meditation practices. But it was temporary. It would come and go. So then he found this group of guys that we call the five ascetics. And these are individuals are doing extreme things to try to find spiritual awakening. So they did things like spend incredibly long periods of time not eating, or incredibly long periods of time not sleeping. Like really just the thought behind it was, if you take everything away from the body, then the mind is going to figure out what it needs to do. If you take everything away from the body, then the mind is going to figure out what it needs to do. And you can see images of the Buddha sometimes where he's emaciated, where he looks like a skeleton, and that's because he was doing this not eating thing. And he didn't find any value in that either. He was just hungry and miserable all the time. So he thought maybe there's a middle way, something between, on the one hand, giving in to all main temptations all the time, and on the other hand, having nothing, right? Maybe there's something in between that. That's what he started to think. So he decided, I think an aspect of human nature is that the truth is within me somewhere. So I'm going to sit under this beautiful tree and just sit and figure it out. So that's what he does. Part of the story we're told is that there's this figure that we call Mara. And Mara, we can think of Mara as like a devil figure. It's a personification of the struggle. It's a personification of the struggle that the would-be Buddha is having. And we can think of Mara as a literal person, a literal being, or we can think of Mara as Siddhartha's own struggle, his own self-doubt, and his own like restlessness, right? I'm sitting under this tree, get enlightened or die trying. Man, I want to get up, right? Man, I want to get up from this tree, but I'm going to do it anyway. So Mara, we're told, appears, and Mara conjures things to tempt Siddhartha into getting up, into giving up. Okay? So first, Mara conjures an army of monsters. Okay? And these monsters are fierce, and they have weapons, and they're just right in front of Siddhartha coming toward him. And Mara thinks this is going to make Siddhartha get up and run away. But Siddhartha just sits. He's not moved by these monsters. And so even part of the story is these monsters are shooting arrows at him, and the arrows turn to flowers or they disappear. So they're not real in the sense that they can do harm. And he knows that because of this journey he's on, because of what he's doing. And then following that, after that doesn't work, Mara conjures beautiful dancing girls in front of him to tempt him into getting up. And again, he's unmoved. He recognizes this is ephemeral, and he does not get up. Let's remind ourselves he's been away from his wife for 6 years. And so these dancing girls, but he's still unmoved. So they disappear. And then Mara says to him, "Who do you think you are? You're not someone who can attain enlightenment. Who do you think you are? You're just some guy." And what Siddhartha does, he says, "I see you, Mara," and he touches the earth. Okay, so he is like that. Many images of the Buddha show him touching the earth, and that represents that moment of enlightenment. In that moment, Mara disappears. As he literally and figuratively, he has grounded himself. Literally and figuratively, because he's literally touching the ground, he's grounded himself and decided he's going to be unmoved. And so Mara disappears, and Siddhartha attains enlightenment. He has that direct experience of the truth. And sometimes, in some of the stories, we're told that once in a while, Mara would show up again, and the Buddha would say, "I see you, Mara," and dispel him. And that is helpful to me. It's helpful to us because we can remember that we could tend to think of enlightenment as something that just happens once, bam, and you're done, and you don't have to practice anymore. And I think it's more of a continual unfolding. So when we have that self-doubt, we can think to ourselves, "I see you, Mara." And when we're really struggling with the things we're attached to that aren't serving us very well a lot of the time, we can say, "I see you, Mara." I've kind of thought like, maybe one day I'll be enlightened, and then if I stub my toe, I will say, "Lo, pain is entering my body." Right? It's not what I say when I stub my toe, right? I don't think that's a thing, but maybe it is, but that's where we would like to be, of course. But the Buddha, he became the Buddha at that time. So he became the awakened one. It's really because he learned to be present. He learned to be present without distraction, without grasping, without aversion. His mind was clear and his heart was full of compassion. So this practice that we're doing, these practices we're doing are about learning how to be awake. And it's supposed to be not just when we're here, not just when we're on the cushion, but when we get out of here too. And the Buddha showed us that an additional thing that we are told is that we're lay people. We don't have to run away from the world to be free also. That freedom, the freedom he found under that tree, is available right here, right now in our engagement in the world. If we can be mindful, if we act with compassion, we can find the stillness underneath our experience, because it is there. The world is going to be a better place if we're more awake. Our lives will be better, and the world will be better. So Bodhi Day can be a reminder that in the midst of all this, we can still wake up. And so I hope we can all find the strength to sit under a tree, figuratively, and open ourselves to the truth. That's what we're trying to do. So I hope this talk's been helpful today, and I love you all.
Thank you for listening to the Rime Buddhist Center's Dharma Talk podcast. Music was provided by Barefoot Bran Music. Please consider supporting the Rime Buddhist Center by making a donation at our website at www.rimecenter.org/donate.